Hello, and welcome back to another useful episode here at Code Your English. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Thank you for taking the time to learn and grow with us. This podcast is not only about improving your English, but also about exploring ideas that help us live better, more meaningful lives. So, if you're someone who wants to speak English more confidently and think more deeply, you're in the right place. Today, we're talking about something that many people have heard of, but few really take the time to understand: core values. You might have seen this phrase in books, on websites, or in motivational talks. But what does it actually mean? And why is it important? Core values are the deeply held beliefs that guide your behavior, your decisions, and even your feelings. They are the invisible rules you live by, the things that matter to you the most. For example, some people value honesty above all. Others might care most about freedom, kindness, creativity, or family. These values help shape the kind of life we want to live. They influence how we spend our time, who we spend it with, and what kind of work we choose to do. But here's the thing. Many people never stop to ask themselves, what are my core values? And because of that, they often feel confused, stuck, or even unhappy without knowing why. Have you ever felt that way? Like something was missing, but you couldn't quite explain what? That's often a sign that you're not living in line with your values. When we don't understand what really matters to us, we may follow other people's paths instead of our own. In this episode, we're going to explore how to understand your own core values and why they're so powerful. You'll learn how values influence your life, how to recognize them, and how to live in a way that feels true to who you are. I'll also share some personal stories, practical examples, and questions that you can reflect on. And of course, you'll be learning all of this in clear, natural English. The kind of English that helps you connect with real people in real life. So let me ask you something. Have you ever made a decision that felt wrong, even if it looked right to others? Or have you ever said yes to something when every part of you wanted to say no? If you have, don't worry. We all have. And those moments are clues. They point us toward the values we may not have noticed yet. By the end of this episode, my hope is that you'll feel more connected to yourself and more confident in your English too. So, take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's dive in. What are core values, really? So, let's start with a simple question. What are core values, really? You've probably heard the phrase before, but sometimes it can feel a bit unclear. The truth is, core values are not complicated, but they are powerful. At their heart, core values are the beliefs that are most important to you. They are the things you deeply care about, the things that guide your behavior, and the things that help you decide what is right or wrong for you. A good way to understand core values is by thinking of them like a compass. Just like a compass helps you find your direction. When you're lost in the forest, your values help you make decisions when life feels confusing or uncertain. You might not always see your values clearly, but they're always there, in the background, helping you find your way, if you pay attention to them. Here's another way to look at it. Imagine building a house. The foundation of the house needs to be strong, or everything else will be unstable. Your values are like that foundation. If your values are clear and strong, it becomes easier to build a life that feels balanced, meaningful, and true to who you are. But if you don't know what your values are, you might build a life that looks okay from the outside, but doesn't feel right on the inside. Let me give you some examples of common core values. One of the most well-known is honesty. If you value honesty, You probably feel uncomfortable lying or hiding the truth, even when it's hard. Another value could be growth. If you care about personal development, you're someone who wants to learn new things, take on challenges, and improve over time. Some people deeply value freedom. They want to feel independent, make their own choices, and live life on their own terms. Others might put family first, always making decisions that support their loved ones. There are also values like kindness, fairness, creativity, discipline, peace, faith, adventure, success, and purpose. Each person has their own unique mix of values. You might share some with your friends or family, but no two people are exactly the same. That's what makes values so personal and powerful. They come from your life experience, your culture, your upbringing, and sometimes even your struggles. It's also important to understand that values can look different depending on where you are in the world. For example, in many Western countries, people are often taught to value independence. Young adults are encouraged to move out, make their own money, and build their own lives as soon as possible. But in many Asian or Middle Eastern cultures, family and community might be seen as more important. People are expected to care for their parents, stay close to family, and think about the group, not just the individual. Neither one is right or wrong. They're just different ways of living, based on different values. Even generations can have different values. Your grandparents might value hard work and stability, especially if they lived through difficult times. Your parents may care more about education and career success, and your own generation might value things like freedom, mental health, or creativity. These differences can sometimes create tension or confusion, especially when people try to live by someone else's values instead of their own. That's why it's so important to stop and ask yourself, what do I truly value? When you know the answer, life becomes a little clearer. Decisions become easier. You don't feel as lost or confused because you have a compass inside you, your values, pointing you in the right direction. Now you might be thinking, well, I value a lot of things, and that's totally normal. Most of us do, but some values are stronger than others. Some are core. They are the values that truly define who you are, the ones you would not want to live without. The goal is not to choose the right values, but to understand your values, the ones that matter most to you, personally. In the next part of this episode, we'll talk about why these values matter so much in everyday life. How do they affect your choices, your relationships, your happiness? You might be surprised at how often your values are guiding your life, even when you don't realize it. But before we move on, I want to ask you something. Take a moment and think. When have you felt truly proud of yourself? What were you doing? Why did it feel so right? Or, on the other hand, when have you felt really uncomfortable? Like you were pretending to be someone else? These moments can give you clues about your core values. Your emotions often tell the truth, even when your mind is confused. So stay with me. We're just getting started. By the end of this episode, you'll have a much clearer picture of what really matters to you and how you can start living more in line with it. And of course, you'll be practicing your English in a way that's real, meaningful, and motivating. Why core values matter in real life. Now that we understand what core values are, let's talk about why they actually matter. Not just in theory, but in real, everyday life. You see, values aren't just big ideas that live in your head. They show up in your choices, your habits, your relationships, your goals, even in how you spend your free time. Whether you realize it or not, your values are shaping your life every single day. Let's take a simple example. Imagine someone who values freedom. They don't enjoy feeling controlled or stuck in a routine. If this person takes a job where every hour is planned, where there's no flexibility, and where they have to follow strict rules all day, they might start to feel unhappy, even if the job pays well. On the surface, everything looks good, but deep inside, something doesn't feel right. Why? Because their job doesn't match their value of freedom. Over time, they might feel bored, frustrated, or even burned out. And if they don't understand the reason, they may blame themselves, when really, the job just doesn't match who they are. That's why understanding your values is so important. It helps you make better decisions, not just about work, but also about friendships, relationships, and how you use your time and energy. When your actions match your values, life feels more natural and less stressful. You feel like you're being yourself, not pretending to be someone else. I'll share a personal story with you. A few years ago, I accepted a job offer that, honestly, looked perfect on paper. The pay was good, the office was modern, and everyone seemed nice during the interviews. But after a few months, I started to feel exhausted. I didn't feel excited to go to work. In fact, I started to feel like I was slowly losing part of myself. At first, I didn't understand why. But then I realized something. One of my core values is growth. I love learning, being challenged, and improving over time. But in that job, everything was repetitive. I wasn't learning anything new. I wasn't growing. I was just doing the same tasks every day, like a machine. And that went completely against what I valued most. Once I understood that, it made sense. It wasn't that I was lazy or that the job was bad. It just didn't fit me. So I started looking for something different, something that would allow me to learn, teach, and grow. And when I finally made that change, I felt like I had energy again. I was excited to wake up in the morning. That's the power of living in line with your values. Sometimes, we also need to set boundaries based on our values. For example, let's say you value family time, but your friends keep inviting you out late every weekend, or your boss expects you to answer emails at night. You might start to feel stressed because you don't have time for the people you care about. In this case, you may need to say no more often, not because you're selfish, but because you're protecting what matters to you. Setting healthy boundaries is not always easy, but it's often necessary when you want to stay true to your values. It's also important to remember that going against your values doesn't always feel bad right away. Sometimes you can stay in the wrong job, or relationship, or lifestyle for months or even years before you realize why you're not happy. That's why self-awareness is so important. The more you pay attention to how you feel in certain situations, the easier it becomes to notice when something doesn't fit. It's like your emotions are sending you a message. You just have to listen. Let me ask you a question. Can you remember a time when you made a choice that didn't feel right? Even if other people said it was the smart choice? Or maybe you stayed silent when you really wanted to speak up, just to avoid conflict. What did that feel like? Did it stay with you afterwards? These are the kinds of moments where our values try to speak to us. When we ignore them, we often feel regret. But when we listen, even if it's uncomfortable, we feel proud. We feel strong. We feel like ourselves. That's why living your values isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. It means choosing what matters most, even when it's not popular. It means trusting your own voice, even when others don't understand. And it means building a life that fits you, not someone else's idea of success or happiness. So, the next time you face a big decision, or even a small one, try asking yourself this: Does this choice reflect what I truly believe? That simple question can be your guide. It can help you choose a path that feels right, not just looks right. And when you start making choices based on your values, you'll notice a shift, not only in your life, but in your confidence, your peace of mind, and your energy. In the next part of our episode, we'll talk about what happens when we don't live in alignment with our values. Because sometimes, the pain we feel is actually a sign that we're moving away from what matters. So, don't go anywhere. We're going deeper in just a moment. Signs you're not living in alignment. So far, we've talked about what core values are and why they matter in your life. Now, let's go a little deeper and ask an important question. What happens when you don't live in alignment with your values? In other words, what happens when your daily actions, decisions, and lifestyle go in a different direction from what you truly believe inside? The answer is simple, but powerful. You feel it. Maybe not right away, but over time, something starts to feel off. You begin to experience discomfort, and not just physical discomfort, it's emotional, it's mental, it's deep inside you. You might feel tired, irritated, unmotivated, or just empty. You might not even know why. One common sign is stress. Now, stress is a normal part of life, of course. But when you're constantly living in a way that goes against your values, the stress doesn't go away. It builds up. It becomes part of your everyday life. For example, imagine someone who values peace and calm, but they work in a fast-paced, high-pressure environment. Every day, they push themselves to survive, but inside, they feel like they're drowning. No amount of vacation or rest can really fix that kind of stress. Because the real problem is that their life doesn't match their values. Another sign is burnout. Burnout is more than just being tired. It's when you feel emotionally exhausted, mentally drained, and disconnected from the things you used to care about. It's like your energy just disappears. You wake up and wonder, what's the point? This often happens to people who are working hard, but in the wrong direction. Maybe they're chasing goals that aren't even their own. Goals that society, parents, or friends told them were important. But deep inside, they feel empty because those goals don't connect with what they truly believe. You may also experience inner conflict. This is when your head says one thing, but your heart says another. You might say yes to something, maybe a job, a relationship, or a responsibility. But inside, you feel something pulling you back. It's not fear. It's not laziness. It's your values trying to speak to you. But many of us are taught to ignore that inner voice. We try to be practical, logical, or successful. But in doing that, we sometimes stop being ourselves. And here's the hard part. From the outside, everything can look perfect. You may have a good job, nice clothes, even a big smile. People might think you're doing great. But inside, you feel lost, confused, or unhappy. And you don't know why. So let me ask you this. Have you ever felt lost even though everything looked fine on the outside? That feeling is not a mistake. It's not something to ignore. It's a message from your inner self. It's saying, hey, this isn't me. This isn't what I really want. Sometimes we try to cover these feelings with distractions, by staying busy, scrolling through our phones, or keeping quiet. But those feelings don't just disappear. They wait. And over time, they grow stronger. You might start to feel disconnected from your own life. You might start asking questions like, why am I even doing this? Or, is this all there is? That's why self-reflection is so important. When you feel discomfort, don't just push it away. Ask yourself, What value of mine is being ignored right now? Maybe you value honesty, but you're in a situation where you have to hide your true opinions. Maybe you value freedom, but your schedule is so packed that you don't even have time to breathe. Maybe you value creativity, but your work doesn't allow you to express yourself. These situations create tension, and your body and mind feel it. The good news is, once you become aware of this, you can start to make changes. You don't have to change everything overnight, but even small adjustments can help you feel more like yourself again. You might start saying no more often. You might speak up, even if your voice shakes. You might take more time to do things that fill your soul, not just your schedule. And that can be the beginning of something powerful, something real. So if you're feeling lost, tired, or stuck, don't just ask what's wrong. Ask what's missing. Ask what values are being ignored. Because the answers are already inside you. They've just been waiting for you to listen. In the next part of the episode, we'll talk about how to actually discover your core values, because knowing them clearly is the first step to living in alignment with them. And once you know your values, your decisions become easier, your energy comes back, and your life starts to feel more meaningful. So stay with me. We're getting closer to something truly life-changing. How to discover your own core values. Now that we've talked about what core values are and how they affect your life, you might be wondering, okay, but how do I actually discover my own core values? That's a great question, and the answer is both simple and deep. Discovering your values is not something that happens in 1 minute. It takes a bit of time, attention, and honesty with yourself. But the good news is, you don't need any special tools or training. All you really need is curiosity, reflection, and a little space to listen to your inner voice. One of the best ways to start is by journaling. Writing your thoughts down on paper helps you see them more clearly. You don't have to write perfectly. This isn't a school test. Just be real. Ask yourself, what do I care about the most in life? Or, what makes me feel proud of who I am? Try to describe a time when you felt really alive, really fulfilled, or really at peace. What were you doing? Who were you with? What part of that experience felt meaningful to you? Often, your values are hiding inside those moments. Another helpful method is to reflect on high and low points in your life. Think back to a time when you felt extremely happy or proud. What was happening? What values were present in that moment? Maybe it was a time when you helped someone, created something, stood up for yourself, or learned something new. Now think about a difficult moment, a time when you felt hurt, frustrated, or disappointed. What was missing in that situation? Were your boundaries crossed? Were you forced to stay silent when you wanted to speak up? Often, strong emotional reactions, both good and bad, can show us what we truly value. Here's a short activity you can try right now. You don't need to pause the episode. Just think for a moment. Ask yourself, what are 3 moments in my life when I felt truly proud of myself? Don't rush. Think deeply. These could be big achievements or small personal victories. Maybe it was finishing your education, helping a friend, moving to a new country, or learning English. Now ask, why do those moments matter to me? Try to name the value behind each one. Was it courage? Growth? Love? Responsibility? Honesty? The answers might surprise you. Let me also share a personal story. When I was younger, I always wanted to make people happy. I said yes to everything, even when I didn't have the time or energy. I didn't want to disappoint anyone. But over time, I started feeling tired, even resentful. One day, a close friend asked me for help, again, and I said yes, even though I had other plans. Later, I missed something important to me, and I felt really bad. That night I asked myself, why do I keep doing this? I realized something important. I value balance. I want to support others, but I also need to take care of myself. That was the moment I understood one of my core values, and it changed the way I made decisions. I started saying no more often, but I said it kindly and with love. And slowly, I started feeling more like myself again. You see, discovering your values doesn't always come from books or classes. It often comes from real-life moments, especially the ones that make you stop and think. You just need to pay attention. Sometimes, people also find their values by looking at the people they admire. Think of someone you respect deeply. It could be a teacher, a family member, a public figure, or even a character from a book or film. What do you admire about them? Their courage? Their honesty? Their kindness? Often, the qualities you admire most in others are also the values you want to live by. Here's another tip. Don't try to choose too many values at once. Start with 3 to 5 that feel really important to you. You don't have to get it perfect. In fact, your values may grow and change as you do. That's completely normal. The goal is not to create a perfect list, but to understand yourself better, to recognize what matters most now, at this stage in your life. And remember, this process is not about judging yourself. It's about knowing yourself. When you take the time to explore your core values, you're giving yourself a gift, the gift of clarity. You're creating a stronger connection between who you are inside and how you live on the outside. That kind of self-awareness brings confidence, peace, and purpose. So, take some time after this episode. Reflect, write, think, talk to someone you trust. Your values are already inside you. You just need to listen. And once you discover them, you'll start to see your life through a new lens. You'll understand why certain things feel right or wrong. You'll feel stronger when making choices. And most of all, you'll feel more at home in your own life. In the next part of the episode, we're going to talk about some of the challenges people face when trying to live their values. Because even when you know your values, it's not always easy to follow them, especially in a world full of pressure, fear, and expectation. But don't worry, we'll walk through it together. Stay with me. Common challenges and misunderstandings. So, now that we've talked about what core values are and how to discover them, let's take a moment to look at something just as important: the challenges that come with living by your values. Because, let's be real, it's not always easy. You might have already started thinking about your own values, and maybe you felt excited, or maybe a little confused. That's okay. That's normal. Understanding your core values is a personal journey, and like any journey, it comes with a few bumps in the road. One of the biggest challenges people face is peer pressure. The feeling that you have to act a certain way because everyone around you expects it. Maybe you believe in honesty, but you're in a work environment where people cut corners to get ahead. Or maybe you value kindness, but your friends often make jokes at other people's expense. It can be really hard to stand your ground when it feels like you're the only one going in a different direction. Another challenge is perfectionism. The idea that you have to live your values perfectly every single day. But the truth is, no one gets it right all the time. And that's okay. Living by your values doesn't mean you'll never make mistakes or feel confused. Sometimes you might go against your values by accident. Maybe you say something you regret, or you stay silent when you wish you had spoken up. It happens. It's not about being perfect. It's about being honest with yourself. The real growth happens when you notice the misstep, learn from it, and try again. That's how we grow stronger and more self-aware. And then there's the fear of judgment, something so many of us deal with, often without realizing it. Maybe you've discovered that one of your top values is creativity. You love to write, draw, or sing. But you're afraid to share that part of yourself because you think people might not take you seriously. Or maybe your value is freedom, but your family expects you to follow a more traditional path. These situations can be incredibly difficult, and in those moments, your values might feel like a secret you're hiding instead of a light you're living by. Another common misunderstanding is thinking that your core values should stay the same forever, like they're carved in stone. But here's the truth. Your values can grow and change, just like you do. That doesn't mean you were wrong before. It simply means you're evolving. For example, someone might value independence in their 20s, but later in life, they might begin to value connection more deeply. That's not weakness. It's wisdom. It shows that you're paying attention to what matters most in your current life. So don't be afraid if your values shift. Life has many seasons, and each one may ask different things from you. And finally, one more challenge I'd like to talk about: confusion. Sometimes people feel overwhelmed when trying to figure out their core values. You might ask yourself, what if I don't know what matters most to me? Or, what if I choose the wrong thing? But the good news is, there's no wrong answer. This isn't a test. It's a process of self-discovery. You're allowed to explore, to try things out, and even to change your mind. What's important is that you're asking the questions. That's how clarity begins, with curiosity and reflection. So if you're struggling, remember this: you're not alone. Everyone faces doubts, confusion, or outside pressure at some point, but that doesn't mean you should stop. In fact, those moments are often where the deepest growth happens. Each challenge you face is like a mirror, showing you where your values are strongest, or where you might want to dig deeper. Let me leave you with this thought. Have you ever felt pressure to be someone you're not, just to fit in? If so, you already know how powerful and difficult it can be to stay true to yourself, but also how freeing it feels when you do. Stay kind to yourself through this process. You're learning, growing, and building a life based on what matters most to you. That's brave, and that's worth celebrating. Living your values. Small steps. Real change. Now that we've talked about what core values are, why they matter, and how to find your own, let's explore something just as important: how to live your values in daily life. Because at the end of the day, knowing your values is only the first step. The real transformation happens when you act on them, not just once, but over and over again, in the small moments of everyday life. You don't need to make a big announcement to the world. You don't need to quit your job, move to another country, or become someone totally different overnight. Living your values doesn't have to be dramatic. In fact, most of the time, it looks really ordinary. But the impact is powerful. Let's say one of your top values is honesty. Living that value might mean being honest with your partner about how you're feeling, instead of pretending everything's okay. It could mean giving your boss respectful but honest feedback, instead of staying silent. These are small conversations, but they build trust in your relationships and in yourself. Or maybe your value is growth. That doesn't mean you need to become an expert in everything, but it might mean reading a book that challenges your thinking, signing up for an online course, or spending 10 minutes a day learning a new skill. Tiny actions, but over time, they add up. They change your mindset. They show you and the people around you that you care about becoming better. How about freedom as a value? That could mean something as simple as setting boundaries around your time. Saying no to things that drain your energy. Choosing to spend your weekend doing what recharges you, not just what others expect from you. At first, this might feel uncomfortable. You might feel guilty. But the more you practice, the easier it becomes. You start creating a life that actually fits you, not just a life that looks good on paper. One of my listeners once shared a story with me. She realized that family was one of her most important values, but her schedule was always packed. Meetings, emails, endless to-do lists. She wasn't spending much time with her kids, so she made one small change. Every evening, just for 30 minutes, she turned off her phone and played with them. No distractions. She said those 30 minutes changed everything. Not only did her kids feel more connected to her, but she felt more fulfilled, more at peace. That's the power of living your values. It doesn't take hours, just intention and consistency. So, here's a reminder for you. It's not about big, perfect steps. It's about small, honest ones. Don't wait for the right time or for everything to be clear. Choose one value that matters to you, just one, and ask yourself, what's one small action I can take today that reflects this value? Maybe it's sending a message to someone you care about. Maybe it's taking a short walk to clear your mind. Maybe it's simply saying no when something doesn't feel right. And don't worry if it feels hard sometimes. That's normal. You're changing patterns. You're growing. The key is to stay consistent, not perfect. Progress always starts small. It's like planting seeds. You water them a little every day. You don't see change right away. But one day, you look back and you realize you've created something meaningful. You've created a life that reflects who you are. So go gently. Stay honest with yourself. Take small steps. And trust that every action matters, especially the quiet ones that no one else sees. Because, in the end, living your values is how you create real change. In your life, and maybe even in the world around you. Questions for personal reflection. Now that we've talked about how to live your values, let's take a few moments to go deeper. It's time to reflect. One of the most powerful tools for growth is asking yourself the right questions. Reflection helps you understand yourself better. It gives you clarity. It helps you make more meaningful decisions. And most importantly, it connects you to what truly matters in your life. If you can, I invite you to slow down for a moment. You can close your eyes or just sit quietly. If you're listening while walking or doing something else, that's okay too. Just try to stay present. Later, you can write these questions down in a journal or notebook. You don't need to answer them all right now. You can come back to them whenever you want. But as I speak each question, I encourage you to pause and really feel it. Let it sit with you. Let your thoughts rise naturally, without judgment. Here is the first question. What truly matters most to me in life? And why? This question helps you discover your deepest values. Think beyond money, job titles, or what others expect from you. What lights you up inside? What gives your life meaning? Maybe it's freedom, honesty, family, creativity, kindness, or growth. Whatever comes to your mind, don't rush. Just be honest with yourself. Now take a breath. Here's the second question. When do I feel most like myself? Think of moments when you feel calm, clear, and full of energy. What are you doing in those moments? Who are you with? What values are being honored during those times? These clues can guide you toward a life that feels more authentic. Let's move to the third question. Where in my life am I living out of alignment with my values? And how does that make me feel? This question can be a little difficult, but it's very important. Sometimes we say yes to things that go against our values. Sometimes we stay silent when we really want to speak. And when that happens, we feel disconnected or uncomfortable. This question helps you notice those moments and gently ask yourself what needs to change. Now, breathe again. Here's the fourth question. What small action can I take this week to live one of my values more fully? Remember, small steps matter. You don't have to change your whole life at once. Just think of one value and one simple thing you can do that reflects it. Maybe it's calling someone you love. Maybe it's taking a break. Maybe it's saying no to something that doesn't feel right. One small action. That's enough to begin. And finally, the fifth question. Who do I want to become? And what values will guide me there? This question is not about being perfect. It's about direction. Think about the kind of person you want to grow into. Strong, kind, focused, free, creative, whatever it may be. Which values will help you become that person? Which ones do you want to hold close as you walk your path? Take a deep breath. These questions are not tests. There are no right or wrong answers. They are simply invitations, gentle doors that open into your inner world. You don't need to rush. You don't need to have it all figured out. Just be curious. Be kind with yourself. Reflection takes time. Growth takes patience. But the more you ask yourself meaningful questions, the more meaningful your life becomes. So, I encourage you. Write these questions down. Take a quiet moment later today or this week. Sit with a notebook. Light a candle. Make some tea. And just write whatever comes. You might be surprised by the wisdom you already carry inside. And now, as we come to the end of today's episode, let's take a moment to pause and reflect on what we've talked about. We started with a simple question. What are core values, and why do they matter? And from there, we explored how your values are more than just words. They are the foundation of your decisions, your relationships, your goals, and the way you live your life. Together, we talked about how to discover your core values by looking at the moments in life when you feel proud, alive, or even frustrated. We explored how values show up in your daily life, how they shape your choices, guide your priorities, and influence the way you respond to the world around you. We also spoke about living in alignment with your values, what that means, why it matters, and how it brings a feeling of inner peace and clarity. Then, we gently moved into personal reflection. I asked you 5 important questions. Questions that can help you understand yourself better, see where your life feels right, and where it may feel off. These questions were not meant to be answered quickly. They were an invitation to go inward, to explore, and to connect more deeply with the person you truly are. So if you've made it this far, I want to say from my heart, thank you. Thank you for listening, for being curious, and for showing up for yourself. Learning a language is not just about grammar or vocabulary. It's also about learning how to express your thoughts, your feelings, and your values with confidence. You are not only improving your English, but also growing as a human being. That's something truly powerful. Here's one final thought I'd love to leave you with. When you live your values, your life starts to feel like your own. You begin to feel more grounded. You stop comparing yourself to others. You make choices that feel right, even if they're not always easy. You start to trust yourself more. And that is where real confidence and happiness begin. So I encourage you, keep exploring your values. Keep asking questions. Keep practicing your English, but also practice self-awareness. Because when the two grow together, your voice becomes stronger, and your life becomes more meaningful. If this episode spoke to you, I invite you to listen to it again later this week. Maybe with a notebook beside you. Share it with someone who might find it helpful. And of course, if you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to follow our channel Code Your English for more episodes that help you grow your English and yourself at the same time. Remember, you are allowed to live a life that feels honest, brave, and true to who you are. The more you understand your values, the more you'll understand your direction in life. And step by step, word by word, you'll build a life that not only looks good on the outside, but feels good on the inside too. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep growing. You're doing great.